theme for this forum this year is Globalization for Zero. And I think that is quite an important, thing. Globalization, as we know, is quite a lot of things. There are issues, there are challenges for it, but I think in a way it is, good for Africa and for Nigeria. And if you look at it, you will see that, the constraints and the challenges are there. The challenges associated with, especially the fourth industrial revolution, be it, maybe ecological, be it maybe the rising inequality. And to me, I think the most important thing is actually the rising inequality, because that is a very, very, big issue. I'm sure you have seen the report from Oxfam where, 50%, or let me say 26 people, the richest people, 26 richest people in the world, have a combined wealth of $1.4 trillion, which is equivalent to the net worth of the 50% or half of the world's poorest. So to me, that is part of the problem that we need to address. Of course, quite a lot of countries are doing more, but we need to address, that issue. The disparity issue is a big issue.
But you're not too far off that list of 26, quite a way, but not too far. But what would you do about it as a businessman in Africa?
Well, I think, the most important thing is for us to try as much as possible to create employment. We really need to do that, because if you look at, countries like China, China has done it. China, in the last, since, the start of the, economic reform, has pulled out over 800 million people out of poverty. India is doing the same thing. India, between 2006 and 2016, has pulled out, over 250 million people out of poverty. India today has got, only maybe 28% of its population as poor people, and extreme poor, because extreme poverty, as we all know, is $1.90, per day or less. So we really need to do a lot more of that, and by doing so, I think, it will greatly help the situation. And one way of doing that, I believe, is actually to try as much as possible to encourage agriculture. That is what India is doing. If you look at what is happening in Paradise State, I was also yesterday on a panel with, Kamal Nath, who is the chief minister of Paradise, and his state has 75 million people in India. And out of that 75 million people, 70% of the population there are farmers, directly or indirectly, So I think we need to do that, because with that, then we'll be able to at least, maybe try as much as possible to pull out a lot of people out of poverty. Unfortunately, my country, Nigeria, today, holds, the position of, having the poorest people in the whole world in terms of percentage. India had that, Nigeria today. So we really need to do more. I'm pleased, though, to say that the country is doing, or the administration, that we have today is doing, a lot to try and improve, on agriculture. And I think that is partly, the way to go.
Yeah, look at it. Your countryman, Aliko Dangote, has invested heavily in rice and tomatoes. How much more do you think should be done in Nigeria along those lines?
A lot more, because as I keep saying, with the resources that we have in Nigeria, to be honest, we need to do more. And I keep saying it any time I get the opportunity to speak. All I tell people is that Nigeria is one of the countries that, believe it or not, have the most resources anywhere. All we need to do is to harness those resources and be able to, do more with them. We don't want a situation where we only export what we have. We want to have a situation where we process everything that we have. I give you an example. One of my plants, that we just commissioned, a few months ago, is in in a remote, one of the most remote areas of Nigeria, in Sokoto State, and the state is sitting on almost, everywhere in the state is limestone. And we have a plant there, and we're only about 100 kilometers away from Niger Republic. So we cater, whatever we need within the community, within the catchment area there, and we export without actually putting up that cement plant in Sokoto State. There's nothing. You'll not have anything. So we need to do a lot more, of that. And we have a lot of these resources, and exactly the same thing that needs to be done in other areas. We have a lot of resources, all over the country that we could actually harness and be able to improve our economy.
There's been a lot of talk here about clear leadership, time for decisive leadership. What do you think the leadership in Africa, political leadership, could do more to try to cut this gap between rich and poor and improve the economies?
To be honest, I think the most important thing is, as much as possible, we need to create more and more jobs, because that is the only way. Because if we do not do that, there is no people will not be able to do anything. Again, as I said, agriculture is one area, and then we have all these resources that we could actually harness. So the governments of Africa, need to do more, need to encourage people to do a lot more. Look at what is happening in other parts of, Africa. Today, I was, with the president of, South Africa, President Ramaphosa, and one of the things he was trying to do, he told me was he wants a lot of investors to come from all over, because all the opportunities that they have there, they want people to come and invest. And the same thing we could do in Nigeria, the same thing we could do in other countries of Africa, because the opportunities are there. I was, again, as you mentioned, the panel that we were on, Angela Merkel was talking about China not being able to deliver good quality products, and they achieve. I said, yes, but Madam Chancellor, what we need to do is to sit down with Europe and see how we can partner. Because if China, for example, is coming to, give you all these products and is coming with financing, but then again, Europe is not able to do that, it will be very, very difficult. So that is why I think we need to be able to get our leaders to sit down and see what we can do more. Egypt is doing it, and they have actually developed, their economy in the last 5 years, as I'm sure you know. Egypt has been able, to have more than 5,000 to 7,000 megawatts of power, since, President Al-Sisi came. And Germany did it because, he pushed, and he was able to get, the German government to actually finance that. And today, Egypt is actually, having almost 20,000 megawatts, and without anybody's financing. So the leaders need to sit down, understand what they need, and push for it. And I'm sure they'll be able to get it.
And if you had the chance to advise, what would be some basic things you do now, for a quick fix of the situation?
It's not easy, because nothing good comes easy. But, the most important thing, I think the good thing is that at least the leaders understand and appreciate that more needs to be done. And a number of them are actually looking for ways in which they can actually come together to try and see how they can develop the continent. And I think that